Welcome back to ConspiracyReaLLiSt on YouTube. Today we explore how the white race was created. Sit back, listen, learn, and then study for yourself. Let's get started. Bet you didn't know that white people didn't exist until America invented them. Not as a culture, not as an ethnicity, not as a nationality, as a political category. Before the 1600s, Europeans didn't call themselves white. They were English, Irish, Scottish, Spanish, German, Dutch, French, and Italian. And they hated each other, fought wars against each other, saw each other as different peoples. But in the American colonies, something happened. A new identity was created, engineered, constructed, and it wasn't cultural. It was strategic. Let's open the file.
Here's the first receipt. The word white did not appear in English colonial law until the year 1691. Not one British law before that used white to describe people. Colonial records before 1600 describe people as Christian, English, free, or subjects of the crown. But then a shift happened, and it wasn't random. Early colonial elites realized something terrifying. Poor Europeans and enslaved Africans were forming alliances. They worked together, ran away together, plotted rebellions together, shared food, labor, living spaces, and sometimes families. The biggest alliance of the enslaved and poor, Bacon's Rebellion, 1676, is the moment in U.S. history where enslaved, poor black and poor white indentured servants united against the colonial elite. The ruling class panicked. If the poor united, the rich were done. So the government created a system to divide them. And that system was whiteness.
After Bacon's Rebellion, the Virginia Assembly passed a series of laws meant to break multiracial unity. These laws banned interracial marriage, punished Europeans who ran away with Africans, increased punishment for black people but reduced punishment for Europeans, created separate labor categories, white servant versus Negro slave, and legally defined white for the first time. In 1691, the law said, "No white man or woman shall marry a Negro, mulatto, or Indian." This sentence is the first time whiteness appears in American law. White wasn't biology. White wasn't culture. White wasn't ancestry. White was a new form of social control.
Elites realized something powerful. If you can't stop poor people from revolting, you can convince some poor people that they are above others. So they created what historian W.E.B. Du Bois called the wages of whiteness. Poor European laborers were offered social status, lighter punishments for crimes, access to guns, the right to testify in court, legal protection from the police, the ability to own land, and small voting rights, not because they were rich, not because they earned it, but because they were white. The elite tapped into the psychology of the European poor to create the social race called whiteness. Whiteness was a reward, a bribe, a way to split the working class permanently. This is one of the earliest intentional racial divide-and-conquer strategies in America.
By the 1700s and 1800s, whiteness became more than a category. It became a legal status. Legal receipts of racism and division include the Naturalization Act of 1790, where only free white persons could become citizens. Then the Fugitive Slave Codes not only define people by white and non-white, but also allow free black and brown people to be arrested and jailed because of the color of their skin. The one-drop rules created in the 19th century stated that if you had one drop of African blood, you were to be classified as black or Negro, which could lead to enslaved or prison, depending on the shade of darkness. Look up the following court cases that determine whiteness according to American history. Start with Ozawa v. U.S., 1922, as well as the United States versus Bhagat Singh Thind, 1923. In these cases, judges literally debated, what does white mean? Who counts as white? Is whiteness about skin, religion, geography, skull shape, meaning? Whiteness wasn't discovered, it was voted on. Whiteness shifted whenever the government needed new immigrants, new taxpayers, new labor, new soldiers, or when politicians wanted new people to exclude from wealth generation. Irish weren't white until they were. Italians weren't white until they were. Jews weren't white until they were. Eastern Europeans weren't white until they were. Whiteness expanded when useful and contracted when profitable. Once whiteness existed, everything else followed. segregation, Jim Crow laws, anti-miscegenation laws, immigration bans, redlining brown and black families away from white areas, school zoning, policing practices, property law, the census system, colonial categories, and modern racial politics. Whiteness wasn't an identity. It was a wall, a barrier, a political shield. It protected wealth. It protected property. It protected elites. And it convinced poor white workers that they had more in common with rich white plantation owners than with the poor black, indigenous, or Mexican laborers beside them. Whiteness didn't just divide people. It blinded them. Even in the American 2024 election, the racial identity of Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris was questioned due to her Indian and Black American racial identities.
Whiteness erased. Irish history, Italian culture, Jewish identity, Slavic ancestry, German ethnic traditions, class divisions within Europe, mixed faith communities, multiracial families, indigenous European intermarriage, Black European intermarriage, and Mexican and indigenous histories. It collapsed dozens of cultures into a single label, not for unity but for control. Whiteness didn't protect people's heritage. It erased it.
Whiteness wasn't created to describe people. It was created to manage people. It wasn't created to unite. It was created to divide. It wasn't created to uplift Europeans. It was created to keep African, indigenous, and poor European laborers from rising up together. Once you understand that whiteness was invented, you start to see that so much of what we call race is just a series of government decisions, not truths. And if the foundation was manufactured, what else was? Stay curious. Stay questioning. Stay on the Conspiracy Real List on YouTube as we reveal hidden history and connect our humanity. Like, subscribe, and comment.